And we're live, so to speak. I'm live with this guy right now doing an interview with my friend Skyler Rader. We're going to tell you guys all about him. But in the meantime, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. Love the fact you were able to join us today. And if you don't know, then you must be a first timer. But my name is Rory Paquette, and I am, as always, your very humble host. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Appreciate it very much. We've had a ton of messages recently over all the stuff that's been coming out, our business classes, our mentorships, our men's coaching sessions. You guys, please continue to send messages. Absolutely love it. You're just filling up my inbox. It's beautiful. If you're trying to reach us, I'm going to say this right away and get it out there. At Power of Man Podcast, all one word. At Power of Man Podcast, all one word. Just throw it at us. We love it. For those of you who are still stuck in yesteryear, like I have been plenty of times, and you need to use email and you don't feel good about, DMing over social media, I totally understand. This guy we're talking to today can probably help you with that phobia. But you can go ahead and email us, and that's Power of Man Podcast, all one word, at gmail.com. Now, a little bit about this guy we're talking to today. He had me on his podcast, the STSG podcast, and that basically is Skyler the Sales Guy. See, I did it wrong again, didn't I?
It's okay. It's okay. It's
No,
guys.
man.
Well, the truth is, I am the sales guy. I'm the marketing guy, but my passion is service. So,
Service.
Sky, the service guy. Yes, sir.
Service. Guys, I've been talking about sales so much lately that it's just ingrained in my brain. Skyler the
It's who we are.
service guy. Skyler the service guy. All right. He can be reached at Skyler at stsgmarketing.com. Did I get that one right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Skyler,
Okay.
welcome to the show, man. I'm sorry for the intro being the way it was. Love
Oh,
having
you're
you here.
okay.
All right.
You're totally fine.
We can hear you great. And he had a little equipment malfunction this morning, so he's very self-conscious about whether or not he can be heard. But you guys can all hear him great, right? Yeah, see, they're all agreeing with me right now. They can all hear you.
Right.
All right. Skyler was nice enough, kind enough to have me on his show just a few days ago, and I know that comes out sometime around Father's Day is what he's planning. But
Yep.
when we know more about that exact date and everything, and he gives me all that, then I'll certainly publish it for you guys. In the meantime, though, make sure you go check him out at the STSG podcast. He's got some good stuff on there and talks to a lot of interesting people. So, Skyler, you are here today. I appreciate
I
you very
am.
much. Appreciate your time. Before we get into everything else, just tell everybody a little bit about what it is you do.
Yeah. So I am a Christian business owner. I do marketing for small businesses. That's what I'm passionate about. I come from the service industry, so anything that gets invited to someone's home, lawn care, pest control, HVAC, painting. What if you're going to someone's home? I've probably worked in the industry in some capacity. So I help service-based businesses for the most part get invited to people's homes and increase their blueprint through social media. So that's the main thing I do.
Okay, so it's physical services. There are the
Yeah,
businesses that
yeah.
you work with primarily.
Primarily, if somebody needs, like I have one client that does power washing. I have another client that does wildlife removal from people's homes. I have another client that does pest control. I have a client that does lawn care. I have a client that does HVAC. So these are people who are trying to get an invitation in someone's home. Social media is a great way to know who's coming to your home. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys in the industry, they're more on the providing the service and not so much the marketing themselves. And that's what I help them do is engage with their audience and let people know they exist and get them that invitation to someone's home.
See, this is one of the things I love about this with you. And I didn't get a chance to say this to you last time because you were interviewing me, and grilling me pretty good. Let me just tell you. But no, I mean, these are the guys that get forgotten.
Right.
These are the guys who are waking up every morning, going out, they're doing their own business, they're paying their own bills, they're
Mm-hmm.
footing the whole thing themselves. They're putting in the work all day long and then, coming home sweaty, dirty, beat to death to put food on the table. And these are the guys that need that extra kind of help. And,
Right.
when you're working a 14-hour manual labor day, you don't always have the chance to go learn this extra stuff. And you got to have it, don't you?
I think in today's era, you do. You know, the first thing that people are going to do when they hear about your business, even if it's coming from a trustworthy referral, they're going to Google you. And then if you're a service, you're probably on Facebook as well. They're going to Facebook you. Facebook's almost become more of a search engine than Google when it comes to businesses, because if I search, for example, when you were doing your real estate business, if I was to search you on Facebook, I can see what friends of mine are interacting with you. I can see who's liking you.
Mhm.
And now I have a more verification than a random person on Google I don't know. It's great that that person on Google gave you 5 stars, but I want to know what my friends think about you. So I think you got to have it today. And also, like on your point, some of these guys are working 10, 12, 14, 15, 16-hour days. Even if they take the time to learn the things that I've learned, they don't necessarily have the time to execute it. So that's one thing I do for them as well is I check their stuff, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I make sure that they're not missing any messages or comments or work. And I help kind of filter that between me and the business owner. And I kind of act as them
I see.
in a sense. Yeah.
Okay. So are you teaching them? Are you like how to do it themselves? Are you running it yourself, or is it, both with the option of like both?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a hybrid. So it depends on the client and it
Mhm.
depends on what they're in. I always talk about what's our goal, what's our finish line, where are we trying to get to? And there's some, like I have a realtor that I help. His goal wasn't for me to do it forever. His goal was for me to teach his wife because they're a husband-wife team.
Ah,
So that's what I did. So essentially, if someone's looking to work with me, I do everything from creation. So if you're a physical service, I will go to job sites with you and create pictures and videos. I will engage with your audience. I'll post for you on media. And then I'll coach you if that's what you want. If your goal is to not have me do it forever, that's fine. I don't necessarily want to work for someone forever. If I can empower somebody else, that's probably going to make a pretty good referral source. So coaching's a part of it too. So it just comes down to what the client likes. But those are the 4 pillars of my business: creation, engagement, coaching, and then the management side.
nice. Very nice. And this is your business that you run. It's all yours.
It's just me. I don't
It's just
outsource
you.
anything. I'm
Right on.
totally white glove. So you only work with me. It's not like I have to call Jim Bob and see why Jim posted whatever for you. If you have, the business owners that I get typically have to give me a substantial amount of trust. So if there's not something that's perfect or I posted something they don't like, which happens, hey, I'm sorry. You're just dealing with me. That's the good news. I don't have to go talk to anybody else. So I
Nice.
don't promise to be perfect, but I promise to give you my best.
Nice. If you don't mind me asking, how does somebody get into doing this, that you're doing now for a living?
Well, I'm kind of a niche service, so there's a lot of people that are social media managers. They typically work remote, and the problem is they'll post a lot of generic. I'm sure your listeners have been on Facebook and seen just a generic post from a company where it's obviously not their picture. It's something that they took off the internet. So there's a lot of people that do what I do, but they don't do it the way I do it. So I typically work with local businesses in my area within an hour and a half drive, and I do everything in person with them. So I'll go to their business and be on site compared to just be working remotely. So they get a lot more attention with me with the site visits. But the way I got into it, to answer the question, I was doing it for myself. So I was a part of a marketing company where we owned, which I'm still a part of it. We own 3 businesses ourselves, where we do lawn care, HVAC, and pest control. And part of my role was selling goods and services and growing the business. And I started marketing myself on Facebook and Instagram and doing things. And because I didn't want to cold call and I didn't want to go door to door anymore. I did that for 15 years, just knocking on doors. And unfortunately, the society we live in, people, when you knock on their door, they're assuming it's a scam or something bad. I know how hard it is to knock on someone's door. So I tend to assume that if someone's knocking on my door, what they have is pretty good. They have to really believe in it. But that's an issue with our country. So instead of me deciding to go knock 100, 200 doors in a day, I decided to post in Facebook or sneak into someone's Facebook group and say, hey, I don't live here, but I'm going to be in your neighborhood today doing free quotes. If you want me to skip your home, message me your address and I will. If you want me to especially come by or you want a specific time, let me know and I will. But this will keep us all from interacting in a negative way. And I got a ton of positive response from that. And I did that for years and years and years. And now I'm in a position in our business where we have so much referrals coming in and so much business from SEO where I don't have to do that anymore. And I have a lot more flexibility. And that's what got me to start my business.
That's a great story, man. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a service that's needed. One thing that I really like about you is when you sit there and you can tell somebody, hey, look, I've been there. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of you. I get it.
Yeah.
Everybody says that to somebody. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like with what I do, I hear guys online all the time giving out advice on being, fathers, being husbands. And then when you get right down to the nitty gritty, it's, well, how long you been married? Oh, I'm not. Or okay, how many kids do you have? I have one. He's 2 years old. Dude,
Mm,
you don't know anything.
right.
Okay, you're giving me advice that you read from somebody else. Because if you have 1 2-year-old, you haven't lived yet. You know what I mean? But
Right.
but you've actually been there. I mean, you and you own. Is it part of a business? That's you and other guys, right? That own the
Yeah, it's my
service.
brother-in-law and his brother. Yeah, I'm a
Awesome,
partner. I'm a partner with them in their service
awesome.
business. We owned a separate company years ago too together where I did a mulch business, and I was essentially I was the owner operator, and they just gave me an investment, and I was out there mulching for 10 hours a day, and then trying to get jobs. I had 12 guys working for me. I have two kids. My son is 7 and my daughter's 4. I've been married 10 years. So to your point, I can tell you, even with two kids under 10, I don't know very much about being a dad. Yeah, I make mistakes all the time, but I try to acknowledge them and get better. But yeah, so like what you said, I was in the field, and I mean, there was a point where I was hands on. I was mulching. I had 12 employees, but I was the only salesperson, and that's a lot. I mean, it's insane. If I would have had somebody like me helping me, it would have streamlined my process substantially.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, appreciate you letting everybody know, just a lot about your business. You're letting everybody kind of see, in the back room a little bit,
sure.
tell them about you and where you come from. When you and I were talking the other night and you were
Hmm.
interviewing me for your podcast, you made a mention to me and you made a statement that really stuck with me. And
Oh,
I was thinking about it, just up until today. You said that today you're living the life that you dreamed of years ago.
hmm.
Now, that is basically every guy's goal. Okay, is to at some point be living the life they dreamed of. But just in our conversation, I also know that you didn't just walk into Easy Street and have
No,
everything handed to you. And now I can tell
no.
you've been an entrepreneur forever. It sounds like, which is
Yeah,
awesome. And you definitely have the bug. But um, if today is the life that you always wanted, where were you, man? Years ago, and what started all of this?
yeah. So just to be transparent with anybody who's listening, and part of me being willing to share this is I hope it helps somebody. At a minimum, it'll at least let me say it again and have an attitude of gratitude. But um, my son, I was working for a lawn care business as a sales manager, and I had positioned myself in the company where I was a regional manager going to 5 different offices. 3 of those offices were out of state. So every day, and in that industry, you've got to work when everyone else is home if you want to get in front of them on their lawn, right?
Hmm.
So, every day I would work like a noon to 10, and then I would drive sometimes an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours home. So me and my wife had been married about 2 years when we had our son. And at that moment, I went, man, I'm not going to be home for bedtime. And that was kind of a big deal for me because I wanted my dad wasn't around. My dad died when I was 11. Him and my mom were separated. He was an alcoholic. I think that's one of the reasons I resonate so well with some of the things you talk about on your podcast is it's about empowering fathers, but there was a time where I was the son, so
Yeah.
in me in my life, I just wanted something different for my family as I was starting it. And I went to the business owner and I told him, hey, I've created this monster. I don't know any other way to do this job. Can we work together here and find a creative solution? Um, and it's not his fault because he empowered me so much, but I couldn't figure out a solution. I couldn't figure out a way to do the job the way it needed to be done. So I ended up training a replacement, but leaving him in the same mess I was in. So I kind of feel bad about that. We're still friends. Um, but I took my experience and my sales aptitude, and I talked to a small, they call them, well, they used to call them this. It was a business banking specialist. There's a man named Patrick Dingledine. So if Patrick ever listens to this, he looks like the Wolf of Wall Street. He looks like Leonardo DiCaprio. He's got the hair slicked back. But I ended up talking him into a position at US Bank to be a business banker. They loved my experience in small business. They loved how I understood what small businesses went through. So they gave me a portfolio, and I ended up managing over 28 branches for just their small business. I ended up even going to uh, they do like a thing in Reno, Nevada for all their top people. So it was like me from Ohio, and then like 50 people from California because the business there is just so much bigger, right?
Right.
So anyway, during this time, I took a huge pay cut. I cut my income by about $70,000. So I went from making about $120 to about 50.
Holy cow.
And when you have a mortgage and two car payments and a child under two, diapers, formula. My wife was a stay-at-home wife, mom. That was, I wanted to have that traditional household. I felt such a weight that I just put on myself trying to get out of the mess. I'd almost made it worse. So my strategy was to take every penny I had saved and I bought a house to flip it. And I partnered with some people who oversold me on their expertise. We ended up working on this house every day, 7 days a week for 10 months. So for 10 months straight, I worked two jobs. I get it. It's a cushy bank job, but still there's a lot of mental work
Still.
that goes in there. Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'd work like an 8 to 5, and then I'd work like a 5:30 to midnight, 5:30 to 11 working on this house because we didn't have
Mhm.
any other money to hire any contractors to come in. I knew a little bit. I didn't know that much. The people I partnered with, they were supposed to know it. And I learned very quickly these people do not know what they're doing. So
Ooh.
if they're listening to this, that's on me. That's not on you guys. There's no hard feelings. But um, so anyway, we're getting towards the end of the house. My daughter's pregnant. My wife's pregnant. I'm sorry. My wife's pregnant with my daughter, right? I
Wait a
said
minute,
that
because
wrong.
I'm like, wait, well, what part
Yeah.
of this story did I just miss?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
my wife ended up getting pregnant during the renovations for that house.
okay,
Like
with number
literally,
two, gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha, gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha.
like literally right when we started doing the house, I find out I got a second one on the way. So now I've got one, I got another one on the way. We're struggling to pay our bills because our lifestyle doesn't match our income.
Hmm.
I'm trying to cut where I can. I've got this house I'm working on. I'm not seeing my wife. I'm not playing with my son. During all my time at the other business and the bank too, I'm an old football player. When I stopped playing football, I exploded like a can of biscuits. So I ballooned up to about 385 pounds the last time I looked at the scale. I probably got higher than that at one time, but I just wouldn't look at it. I just didn't even want to know. So I'm overweight, not making the money I want to make. I walked away from a decent paying job, not seeing my kid. I'm not seeing my wife. I mean, there's people that have shared custody to see their kids more than I was seeing them. I got another one on the way. I'm in business with some people that I don't agree with. And I was just in a really, really dark place, full of depression, full of anxiety. And I remember, I remember thinking like, man, is this what it feels like to have a nervous breakdown? Like I remember feeling so overwhelmed. So my daughter was born in September. When you work at the bank, they give you 4 weeks off leave. By now, the house is on market, but we're not getting any hits. The people I'm selling the house with, they don't want to lower the price. This was before the market went back up. We would have been fine in in the market we were at 2 years ago. But 5 years ago, the market wasn't like that. And we had the
No.
most expensive house in the neighborhood. You don't want to have the most expensive house in the neighborhood. Um, So I'm like begging these guys, like, hey, let's drop the price $5,000. Let's just get more showings, whatever it takes. So I'm dealing with that. At this point, I'd probably racked up somewhere between $14,000 and $18,000 in extra debt on credit card. And
Just
then
from
now I'm
living
paying,
and stuff like that.
yeah,
Just
and
living.
just,
Yeah.
and I remember telling my wife, I said, we have, if things continue at this rate, we have 26 weeks before we'll start the foreclosure process. And,
Wow.
kudos to me for seeing ahead. But I remember telling my best friend, the guy I'm in business with now in the service business, I remember telling him about it. And he said, no matter how bad it gets, don't tell her. You don't need to give her that extra stress. And I told her, I wanted to be transparent because the house I own does have a ton of equity where if we sold it, it would bail us out. It wouldn't be a permanent solution, but it would bail us out. So anyway, I get 4 weeks off leave for when my daughter was born. Very thankful that the bank let me do that because I didn't get to spend hardly any time with my son when he was born because I was working that other business. And it's the last day of my leave. I go out front to cut the grass. It's October now. I'm thinking, okay, it's probably gonna be my last cut of the year. I'm rushing through it because it's the last day of leave and I really just want to relax before I have to go back to work and I've got all that stress on me. And I'm on the side of my house, literally the side that's right behind me here. There's a hill between me and the neighbor, and my yard kind of trickles up onto his property line. So I always would push the mower up, come back down. Something happened on this day, and I slipped. And when I slipped, I held onto the mower when I was falling. You don't think to let go, and my foot went underneath the mower. And by the grace of God, my little toes curled and my big toe went up and the blade on my mower was pretty dull, so it shredded my big toe.
Ah,
So at the time, I thought this is pretty bad. I knew right away what I did. I mean, I popped right up off the ground. Your adrenaline starts pumping, and just kind of a crazy thing. So kind of going back here to before I was ever in the lawn business as the sales manager, I went to school for paramedics and firefighting. I'm afraid of heights, so it didn't work out. But I did finish the training. Right then, all that paramedic training comes back to me, and there's an artery that runs next to your big toe and your other digit there. And I thought I hit the artery because of how bad I was bleeding. So, I walk to the front door, yell for my wife. I don't want to come in. I don't want to get blood on the floors. And I'm like kind of going through it. I said, hey, here's where the life insurance policy is. This is where this is. Call the bank tomorrow. Let them know what's going on. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, all that adrenaline just kind of kept me calm in the moment. And I'm like talking through this. And she's like in just shock and disbelief because I'm just bleeding all over the concrete. Ambulance comes. I hop in the ambulance. The, the ambulance guy went, man, I don't know how we're going to get this guy in the ambulance. You're a big guy. And I said, oh, no, I can walk. so,
that
so
might
I
have been
just
some
walked myself to the
shock right
ambulance.
there. That's
Yeah,
almost like you're in shock. But
yeah, it's that adrenaline. So get into
yeah.
the hospital. I'm on the way there, and um, the doctors want to give me. So we're on the ambulance, and he's like, "Hey, do you want anything for pain?" And I'm like, "Sure." I'm not in pain yet, but I know it's coming. And he gives me fentanyl. And I'm like, "Whoa!" I don't, whatever, because all you hear so much stuff about fentanyl in the street or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, in this dose, in this situation, you're going to be fine." It's like, okay, whatever. You're the expert. Let's do it. That doesn't do anything for me. And I had about a 25-minute ride to the hospital where I live. Um, so then he's like, well, here, let's give you ketamine. I'm like, okay. So they wheel me in. The first thing the doctor says is, wow, you've got ketamine eyes. Are you going to throw up? I'm like, I don't think so. So they put me in this room. By now, my brother-in-law meets me at the hospital. My best friend, Chris, he meets me there. And he's the comedic relief to the situation because here I am in like crazy pain. People are coming in and out of the room. Doctors are checking on me, whatever. And he's like, man, when you get better, I'm going to buy you a tow truck. When you get better, let's go out and get some tofu. And he's just making all these toe puns. So,
Ah,
long,
okay.
so he ends up leaving. My other brother-in-law, my father-in-law come to check on me, which was really kind of them. And we're all of the same faith. But my brother-in-law, Tim, he does a little bit more platform ministry where he does preaching and stuff too. So they're getting ready to leave because now it's going to be time for me to get an actual hospital room. And the doctor's kind of going over my options with me. And he's like, hey, we're going to have to amputate what's left over. Like your toe's not completely gone, but there's no way of saving it. So we're
Ouch.
gonna have to amputate that. So I'm like, okay. And so he's getting ready to leave, and I'm like, hey Tim, will you pray for me before you leave? He's like, oh, absolutely. I don't know if you believe in faith healing or not, or where you stand on that, but
Quite a bit,
I
actually. So yeah.
I had believed in it my whole life, but I had never experienced it. The moment he put his hand on my foot, I just had a total peace come into the room. And from that moment on, I knew everything was going to be okay. So I didn't get to keep my toe, obviously. Next day I have surgery. The surgery goes fine. They amputate it, whatever. They kind of folded it over, lack of better terms. Um, what happened though in the hospital is, they want you to be able to manage your pain while they're keeping you in evaluation. They took me off the pain meds because I was so heavy and my sleep apnea was so bad
Oh,
that
geez.
my oxygen levels were getting into like life threatening oxygen levels. So here I am in a hospital. I can't sleep because I'm in so much pain. And I was probably up for 2 or 3 days straight. And I wasn't allowed to have pain medicine. So they sent me home from the
Oh,
hospital on an oxygen tank. The recovery wasn't that bad, but that moment made me address my sleep apnea. So that was a good thing that came from that. I ended up losing about 60 pounds the first year just by getting a good night's sleep, not changing anything. Um, and now I work out 4 or 5 times a week. I've lost about 100 pounds. So I'm about
nice.
285 now, 285, and, I got muscle, so it's kind of cool. But, my goal is to get down to 225. So I still got another 60 to go, but having that accident, I would have never addressed my sleep apnea. I would have never been able to lose the weight. Um, what happened next was probably the worst part of the whole recovery was I had an infection. So when I go for my follow-ups, the doctor would be talking to me about, hey, if this infection doesn't stop, we're going to have to take your foot or up
Oh,
to your knee
geez.
or up
Wow.
to your hip. So they're trying every antibiotic every 2 weeks. And he said, hey, this is the last thing we can try before we have to take something. And okay. I just had that peace from when Tim had prayed for me, and um, that last one worked, and the infection went away. So I go back to the bank, tell my boss, hey, I'm quitting. I'm starting my own business. Life's too short. He's like, okay. And I got with my brother-in-law, and he had his lawn business by then, and I started the mulch business that I kind of hinted at earlier. Um, but in that moment, like when all that stuff was happening, the only thing I was thinking about was I just want to play with my kids. I just want to whatever. I want to live a life where I can be at all my kids' sports, where I can coach my kids in sports, where I can be active. And it's sad because I look back at pictures 5 years ago, or 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and every picture I'm sitting down. Every picture I look bloated and just pale and it just not healthy.
Right.
And I didn't realize how bad it was until like pretty much right before the accident happened.
Right.
And that accident changed everything. Me getting my sleep under control. I wake up rested. I can take on the day. Get up at 5:30 in the morning without an alarm. Since then, my son started playing sports when he was 4. So like literally the year of after the accident, he started playing sports. I coached him in basketball, soccer, flag football. He runs track. When he's at track practicing, I'm walking the track, watching him. I'm just, my daughter, she's in flag football. She's in soccer. She's in basketball. I coached her too. It's kind of hard to now coach both because it's, some of the games are at the same time. So I don't know if I'm going to continue to be able to coaching, but I can be active in practice. I can play in the backyard with my kids. I have that. And we ended up selling the mulch business. because of COVID. I don't know how it is where you live, but where I live, they were doing it was $600 on top of the unemployment. So some of my mulch guys were only making
Ah,
600 bucks,
right,
and no shame to anyone if that's what you make. You make what you can make. But I had guys begging me to lay them off because they could make more money on unemployment.
right.
So I ended up selling the business because it just didn't make sense at that point. And I went to work with them at their service business. And about that time, I started really getting that going and doing the marketing for myself. And then that spiraled into where I'm at today. But I've got all the
Wow.
flexibility in the world, make my own schedule. I've got a plan to get to my bigger goals. I always had these bigger goals, but there was a point where I said, if I could just be there, I'll be happy. And that's where I am today. So,
Wow.
yeah. So advice to anyone, you don't have to cut off a limb to change your life, and deal with like literally $80,000 in hospital bills. But you can just wake up tomorrow and just pick one action step and go for it. So that'd be my advice to anybody.
I mean, I don't find myself in this position that often. Okay. But I mean, like, I probably haven't said anything for the last 20 minutes, really, because you've done such an amazing job of telling that story. Like, I, there's so much there. Okay, let me back up a couple of things because I got a couple of questions, but
Sure.
then a couple of things
Yeah.
I want to point out about the story. But first of all, just wow, okay, that you are where you are, and let me tell you point blank, if you're only listening to this and you're not watching it on YouTube or Rumble, um, this guy does not look like he's 400 pounds or 300 pounds or anything else. I never would have pegged you for that.
Yeah. I'm about 285 now. But I'm a tall guy. So I'm almost 6'4". I've got a broad frame. So I
Okay,
think that helps. I think that helps. Most people, when they look at me, they would probably guess, oh, he probably weighs 225, 245. But it's how you carry the weight.
you've
Everybody's
stretched it
different.
out, yeah, quite a bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
got you.
One
Okay.
thing that did change the way I look at myself a few years ago, I went to a nutrition place as I was getting better from the sleep and all that. I started working out. I go to this nutrition place and they had a special scale where they would do some testing for you as part of their store. It was a great business model. They ended up going out of business. I hated that for them, but it measured my bone density, my muscle, and then my fat. And it changed the way I looked at myself forever because at the time I had 135 pounds of bone and I had 135 pounds of muscle at the time. So 270 right there, not including any fat. So as I lost fat, I also sacrificed some muscle in my workouts by doing more cardio and things
Hmm.
to get my body mass down. But that changed the way I looked at myself forever because I went, okay, you're probably not going to be a guy that's under 200 pounds ever unless you're sick, with your,
Well, yeah, not with that much bone weight. I mean,
right.
you literally are
Yeah.
big boned. That's just how it
Right.
goes. It's
It's a real, yeah, and I never really believed that was a real thing. So I would encourage anybody to not trust necessarily the scale, find out what your actual numbers are, and then work out from there. That'll encourage most people, I think.
nice. Now, you said you got the sleep apnea quote under control. Did you get a machine?
I did. I
CPAP
did.
machine?
That's what I should be selling. I mean, I can't thank that thing enough. That's
Because
what I really should be selling. It
that
changed my life.
story, yeah, that story is the endorsement for the CPAP machine, like that
Yeah.
every guy probably needs to hear. But
Yeah. It changed my life. If you snore, you should go get a test. My wife, she told me for years, your snoring is keeping me up. And I snored when I was a kid. So I just thought, I've always snored. What are you talking about? Come to find out, some snoring is hereditary. It's not always about your weight.
mhm.
So, now that I educated myself about it, but that machine changed my life. I mean, if I get 6 hours, I feel like how I used to feel after 10 or 12 hours. I feel great.
That's nice. That's
Yeah.
nice. The story as a whole. Um, I run into this a lot with guys. Many of us as fathers and husbands, in this world, we unfortunately we don't hear any of the warnings.
Yeah.
We don't take heed to the back pain. We don't or the knees hurting or the shortness of breath. Right, the career going the wrong direction, not sleeping good, wishing that you're with your kids and you're not. I mean, you had every symptom in the world physical, mental, emotional, um, career wise, to say you're not on the right path.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a
There
lot
was a point
like,
where I went, I've made a terrible mistake.
a lot like me and a lot like other guys, like the two of us, we needed something major to happen to wake us the hell up.
Yeah.
And what do you say to guys? Because I'm sure you've given this some thought just from talking to you here. What do you say to guys who know they need to make a change, but they're like, that's too hard, that's too tough, maybe I won't, it's going to be fine. What do you say to the guys who are just stuck? Um, Deep down, they know they got to make a change, but they're not.
I would encourage them to pick something small.
Okay,
Just pick something
tell me more.
small.
Tell me more on that.
For me, as I was feeling better and getting my sleep and whatnot, I was like, okay, I'm going to start making some healthier choices here. And like my diet was something I still struggle with. I love fast food. I'm addicted to it. Okay.
I hear
And
you.
they make it, in my defense, they make it addictive, right? They want people to feel that way, right? So something I did was I was like, okay, the moment I tell myself I can't have something, I'm going to crave it. I'm like, okay, you're allowed to have fast food, but you're not allowed to have it until lunch. So I started skipping breakfast. I started doing the intermittent fasting.
Hmm.
It was like, okay, cool. And then it was, okay, you're not going to get a large combo anymore. You're going to get a medium. You're not going to order two sandwiches. You're going to order one. Right. So I just started to wean myself off. And now, now I'll have fast food maybe once or twice a month. It's really not like, I typically will only really have it if I'm in a pinch where I really need to eat something because I'm starving in the middle of the day where it's a distraction, you
Okay,
know?
hold on. Are you punking me right now?
No,
Did you read my book,
uh-uh,
The 5% Diet?
no.
You like just recited like one of the chapters. I mean, almost word for word. That's amazing. You're
I'm
telling
gonna
me the
write that in my
truth.
notes.
You're telling me the
I
truth.
swear to
You
God.
you didn't like after our
If
episode, you
I'm
didn't look me
lying, I'm
up.
dying. I promise, Roy.
Because I'm sitting here going, is he reading my book back to me right now? Like, because you seem like you have that sense of humor too. Like you might just, punk me like that. And I'm
No,
going,
I promise you. I promise you I'm not.
that's such great advice. I mean, it's how I started my weight loss journey back in the day. You know what I mean? When I
Yeah.
was way out of control. You know what I mean? And I mean, that is such great advice for guys to
Well,
begin
you
with.
see like all these crazy fad diets where it's like straight off a cliff. And if you do this, you'll lose 30 pounds the first month. And it's like,
Right?
is that sustainable?
Yeah.
Like,
No.
whatever. So that's kind of the way I did it. And then, so my rule is I can have pretty much whatever I want. It's just when I have it. And that typically leads to less consumption.
Sure.
And then most of our meals that we make at home with the kids at dinner time is, it's raw fruits and vegetables, proteins. We try to keep it really clean and simple with the kids.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
That's awesome.
but
You
yeah,
got
yeah. The advice I'd give to other men is pick something small. Now, if it's not your diet or your health, if it's work and you need to make more money, maybe you do find a side business to start where it's something you only do on Saturdays or you only do one night a week, whatever it is. I mean, I've done plenty of odd jobs along the way. I didn't tell you all the odd
sure.
jobs I did, but there was all kinds of stuff I did just to make ends meet.
Well, that's what you do. When you're a
Yeah.
husband, when you're a father, and you got to provide, you go out and you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So I love your attitude because bringing it back to some of the stuff we talk about here, on this podcast, the it took you a little while to get hit in the head with the 2x4, or actually in the toe with the 2x4,
Yeah.
and wake up to the
Right.
changes you needed to make. But nowhere in your story am I seeing a guy who wasn't willing to go out and do whatever he had to do. You know what I mean? You really look like and seem like the guy who sacrificed himself physically to go out and do what he needed to do for his family. Am I reading that somewhat right?
Yeah. I mean, even before I was doing like the mulch business and doing like the hard labor, when I was working on that house, I mean, busting up tile and laying flooring and drywall. I mean, that stuff wears and tears on you,
Yeah.
And I've done like, there was a point too where would take any odd job because we were drowning so bad. There was a guy I knew was like, hey, there's a dead animal in a crawl space, but you go. And I'm like this huge guy, and I'm like, I don't even know if I can fit in the crawl space, but if I can fit in there, I'll go get it for you. So here I am crawling on my belly underneath this house, picking up, I think it was like a dead possum or something. And he's like, thanks, I was like, okay, like that was kind of when you start doing stuff that you wouldn't imagine yourself doing, that's probably something apart us being a man where we just need to do what we need to do, but also that's probably a wake up call like, okay, I got to figure out a better way. I got to put some action steps here in place to figure this out.
Right. That's the second part of it. The first part is that you reach a point where you're willing to do whatever you have to do because the bills got to get paid. Food's got to hit the table. I got kids. But a lot of guys don't make that transition to the next step of saying, look, I am willing to do it right now to do whatever needs to be done. Okay. And I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to take pride in that and I'm going to lead my family, but this should be telling me something.
Right.
This should be telling me that something's wrong in Mudville and I need to not be doing, crawling around underneath houses to pick up dead animals. I hope you got paid for that, by the way.
I did.
Oh,
I did.
okay.
Yeah. I think it
What?
was a couple $100. It was nothing to brag about, but
Oh, that's not
you know,
bad.
at, yeah, at the time it was better than not having it,
Well, yeah.
you
I
know.
mean, when you and I talked, I've been all the way down to the point where there are no jobs. There are no jobs, and you have to just go give blood. You know what I
I
mean?
remember you saying that. That was something I didn't get a chance to tell you is there was a point where I thought about that. I was like, and because I was working on that house, I felt like I didn't even have time. I don't even have time
Right.
to go give blood. I didn't even have time to use that resource.
Yeah. And it's a little easier nowadays, which is funny to say it's easier to give away your blood now. But it's easier nowadays because they take your plasma
Right.
and you actually get to keep the blood. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the recovery is not as bad. But back when my family and I were going through it, they just took your blood, and
Wow.
sometimes they would give you a gift card to a store for the blood. And I'm like, well, that's what I need. It's food for the family. So I'll take the gift
Right.
card to go ahead and take the blood. And you're walking out of there and you're dizzy and you're like, how am I going to drive to the store now? So
Right.
you got to take like a 20-minute nap in the car to be able to make it to the store, still woozy and, losing it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I get it. And too many of us, we get to the point where we're willing to make that sacrifice, but we don't take it to the next step. And, you did eventually,
Yeah.
when you got, clobbered, but, that's, you've mentioned your faith several times and, I can tell you're a Christian guy. And, I've had several points in my life where I've had those sort of, wake up moments and I haven't always heeded them, but
Mhm.
part of what I think happens is guys have a hard time finding those. They have a hard time recognizing those moments when they hit. Um, Other than just the severity of everything that happened to you, did you identify anything else that might have just said to you, "Hey, this is the moment that you need to be waking up"? I mean, was there something that maybe tipped you off or told you, look, yes, this is severe. Yes, it's a disaster right now. You're bleeding all over the room, but this is your wake up call.
Um, so I think I asked for it. I remember coming home and I was really depressed, and I don't want to necessarily use the word suicidal because I don't want to tread on it too lightly for anyone who might be having those thoughts. But there was a moment where I was in this very room. So this is my home office. I'm in my basement, and I was kind of sitting over here next to the closet in the dark. And I just remember thinking maybe they'll be better off without me. And I started to pray, and I asked God to pick me up and put me in a different direction. And I think it was like a couple days later the accident happened. So I think maybe I asked for it. I want to give credit where credit's due. You know, I firmly believe. I don't know if the accident was a God thing or not, but I know that the peace that fell in that room when my brother-in-law prayed for me was. And if that's what needed to happen to get me to that point, to give me that peace, that was. I mean, that was. I think society programs men to be where we are seeing a change where it's almost where it's too much encouragement of the feminine, in my opinion, but that's a whole nother thing. But I think I think the rest of us were encouraged to be so tough and so strong, and you almost feel like you can't ask for help or it'll be a weakness. And I wish I wouldn't have been so stubborn. I wish I would have got to the sleep doctor sooner. If I would have just went to the sleep doctor sooner, I firmly believe I would still be 99% where I'm at now. But I wasn't going to do it. It's not that bad. Oh, she's making a big deal about nothing.
Mhm.
I'm okay. I'm okay. But I wasn't okay.
Wow. I can't thank you enough for sharing that, man. I mean, you certainly went deep and told everybody a lot, about what you've been through.
Sure.
And that had to be, well, it was life-changing for you,
Yeah.
clearly. Yeah.
I do sometimes feel like a little bit of a wuss because I see these other guys who are in the military and they come back missing something, and I'm just missing a toe. So if you're a military person or you know somebody who's lost something more severe to me than me, I tip my hat off to you. Thank you guys for your service and all that. But so it's moments like that where I go, it could have been worse. you know,
Yeah,
that
for
kind of thing
sure.
too.
I work with a lot of military guys, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that every one of them would of course, appreciate hearing that, from you. But the military guys don't look at it that way. They're
Yeah.
not like, oh, shut up. I've been through a lot worse, because they look at what they went through as their job,
Right.
and they take a lot of pride in that kind of thing.
Right.
So I don't think you're offending anybody, brother. I think you're
Good.
okay. But
Good.
I love your message too. Just in kind of wrapping things up, I love the message that look, none of us want to show weakness. Okay. None of us want to be showing weakness to our wives or our children and saying, hey, I can't handle it. But when you get to the point where you need help,
Mhm.
asking for help, okay, especially if you're asking for it from a guy, a brotherhood, that type of thing,
Right.
acknowledging that you need help is not weakness in and of itself. There's a strength in recognizing what you need. And those are strong words.
Right.
Those are strong words.
Yeah. I wish I would have asked for help sooner. And I will say this to your audience too. I think it's important who we ask for help. I would encourage you to ask yourself the question before you tell somebody your dirty laundry. Can this person actually help me? Because if there's someone who listens to you go on and on and on, but they can't actually help you, they're probably not your friend. They probably just want to hear your dirty laundry.
A
You know.
little more jaded look at it, but I don't blame you
Right.
at all. So I hope that's not an indication of stuff you've had to go through personally right there.
Maybe once or twice where I'm like,
Maybe a little.
I shouldn't have shared that. That person can't help me. I'm like, what was I thinking? That person's more messed up than I am.
No, good advice all around though, man. Really and truly. So I thank you for coming on here and sharing,
Thank
your
you.
story, for telling everybody, obviously about what you do. I think that what you do is a huge help, to a lot of folks. You're dealing with a forgotten, group of people, because the guy who's running his own lawn service doesn't have, $50,000 to go run an advertising campaign.
Right.
So he doesn't have 40 people knocking on his door offering him stuff.
Yep.
He has you.
Yeah. And I
you know,
pride myself, the business owners I work with, I don't have just like a set cost that I charge everybody. One thing I'm trying to do is advertising that anyone can afford.
nice.
So if they have a budget, based on that budget, we can come up with a plan, and I'll give them what they want. And typically, because I'm a people pleaser, I want to give them a little bit more than what they asked for.
Nice.
So
Nice.
on that note, it's not going to cost nowhere near 50,000.
All right, brother. So if anybody wants to reach you, wants to find out more about your business, or just wants to connect with you, what are some of the best ways to do that?
I think the best way is just to go through the website, www.stsgmarketing.com.
Okay.
Or you can find me on Facebook, Skyler Rader. There's not that many Skyler Raiders in the world. So
Sure.
if you want to send me a message there, whatnot. And then on your note about an email, um, so the difference between emailing someone and going into their DMs, their direct messages, is the urgency of the request. So if you're looking for an urgent response, send me a message on the platforms there. If it's something that you want me to take a few days to get back with you on, you can email me at skyler@stsgmarketing.com.
Nice. Nice. Okay. I
Yeah.
appreciate you piggybacking on that. So,
Yes,
all
sir.
right. That's beautiful. All of that contact info then will be in the show notes also when this one comes out. It'll be coming out shortly. So, I'll definitely let you know. Hopefully you can share it with your folks and
Of
they can
course.
all learn a little bit more about you and your story, so,
Mhm.
which is good. But I want to thank you for being on. I really do. I appreciate
Yeah.
your
Thank you.
story,
Thank you. Thank you.
everything you've been through. And it's got to be encouraging to a lot of guys who are going through a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't
All
give
right.
up, guys.
All
Keep
right.
pushing.
Thank you, brother. All right, folks, that's Skyler Rader. And what a story. What a story. A lot of stuff to unpack there. If I was you, I would listen to this a second time. Not only because it's going to help my downloads, but also because I think that this guy has laid out a lot. A lot of guys deal with any one of the things that this guy dealt with, and he dealt with quite a few. So, and Skyler, you did a great job dealing with them too, brother. Let me just say,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, the reason that we do this, the reason that we talk about these things, the reason I have these powerful men on who have overcome this adversity, who have taken this journey in life, is because you can do it too. And that's the point, is that when he and I come up here and we talk about what we can do and what we have done, we're not bragging. We're not trying to say, hey, look at us. We're trying to tell you, you can do it too. So don't lose faith. You are worth it. You're worth all of the work that it might entail. You just have to believe it. Till next time.